Welcome to episode 14, a law that makes people immediately uncomfortable, even if they don't want to admit it. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. It sounds cold, maybe even cruel, but in the world of power, it's a survival skill.
Let's get this straight from the beginning. This law isn't about betrayal. It's about information. And the hard truth is, the more you know, the more power you have. Period. Greene isn't telling you to stab your allies in the back. He's telling you to stop walking blind in a room full of players.
Exactly. Because the people around you, whether they're competitors, collaborators, even friends, they're all driven by their own agendas. If you're not listening, watching, learning, you're already at a disadvantage.
That's what makes this law strategic, not malicious. You're not hurting anyone. You're observing. You're collecting data. You're paying attention to what people say when they're comfortable around you, because that's when the truth leaks out.
And it's important to say, information is power only when it's gathered quietly. Loud questions raise alarms, but subtle presence, curiosity masked as conversation, that's where influence begins.
So when Greene says pose as a friend, he doesn't mean pretend to like someone. He means create comfort, because comfort disarms. And when people feel disarmed, they reveal. Not always on purpose, but they do.
And let's be honest, most people love to talk about themselves. All you have to do is listen better than they expect. Ask thoughtful questions. Track what's consistent, what's contradictory, what's missing.
That's how great strategists operate. They don't control the room by dominating it. They control it by reading it better than anyone else. And reading people, that starts with attention, not assertion.
And the smartest players don't just listen to what's said, they notice how it's said. The tone, the pacing, the hesitation, the excitement. Those micro signals are data.
And once you collect enough of those signals, patterns emerge. Motives get clearer. Weaknesses show up. Pressure points surface. And now, without confrontation, you have leverage.
Because in any environment where power is real, business, politics, even social dynamics, leverage doesn't come from being loud, it comes from being informed. That's the edge this law gives you.
So the real question becomes, who around you thinks you're just listening politely when in fact you're building a map? Let's break down why this works. People naturally lower their guard around those they perceive as allies. It's instinctive. If you present yourself as non-threatening, they unconsciously start revealing themselves, their thoughts, frustrations, doubts, and plans.
And they don't even realize they're doing it. That's the beauty of it. Because the brain is wired for connection, not constant defense. So when someone appears warm, open, and relatable, we tend to assume they're safe.
But here's the twist. In power dynamics, safe is often just strategic. The person who seems least threatening might be the most observant. The one who speaks the least is often the one learning the most.
That's why Greene emphasizes the spy part of the law. It's not about eavesdropping or stealing secrets. It's about becoming the kind of presence that invites openness, so that information comes to you.
Think about it. In any negotiation, social circle, or competitive space, the person with the most context has the most control. And that context doesn't come from talking, it comes from listening, watching, storing.
And when you master that, you stop reacting, you start anticipating. You know who's aligned with you, who's drifting, who's waiting for you to slip. You don't guess, you know.
It also protects you, because when people don't know what you're paying attention to, they don't know what you know. That unpredictability makes you harder to read and harder to trap.
And let's be honest, most power struggles aren't won in public. They're won in the quiet moments, in what's overheard, what's implied, what's left unsaid. That's where the real moves are planned.
You want to see this law in action? Watch a good poker player. They don't dominate the table with loud plays. They watch, they read, they track the smallest tells, and when they strike, it's surgical.
Or look at great leaders. They ask questions others overlook. They remember details others forget. They catch contradictions others miss. And all of that gives them a psychological map of the room.
That map is power. It shows them where the alliances are strong, where the tensions are building, where the next threat might come from, and it lets them move first or move silently.
So, if you're serious about power, Stop needing to be seen all the time. Learn to see. Learn to gather. That everything needs to be said out loud to shape the room.
If you want to understand how timeless this law is, just look at history. The best spies, political, corporate, or personal, never wore masks or snuck through shadows. They wore smiles. They listened closely, and they blended in perfectly.
Take Cardinal Richelieu, for example, the chief minister to Louis XIII. He wasn't just a politician, he was a master of quiet control. He surrounded himself with informants disguised as servants, messengers, even friends of the nobility. Why? Because influence isn't about being present at the table, it's about knowing what's being said when you're not in the room.
That's what this law teaches you. Power isn't just about action, it's about preparation. And the best preparation comes from information. If you know what people want, fear, and hide, you don't have to force anything. You guide them with precision.
And this principle shows up today in more subtle ways. In business, for example, some of the most successful executives aren't the ones who speak the loudest in meetings. They're the ones who know what to listen for. Who's insecure about their position? Who's trying to get ahead? Who's protecting what?
And they don't confront that information, they use it. Maybe they give someone just enough rope. Maybe they align with someone quietly. Maybe they wait. But when they move, it's not a reaction. It's a calculated step based on what they've already observed.
That's the difference between noise and intelligence. One is loud and public, the other is quiet and private, and far more powerful.
You also see this in social dynamics. Ever notice how some people always seem to know just the right thing to say at the right time? They're not guessing, they're watching. They've learned what makes people tick, what makes them feel seen, what makes them lower their guard.
And in that space of lowered defenses, they get access to information, to influence, to trust they haven't even earned, just appeared to deserve.
Which is why posing as a friend isn't about faking kindness, it's about using connection as a gateway to insight. People reveal more to those they like, even if that likeness is one-sided or constructed.
And once you understand that, you stop trying to overpower people. You start using the weight of their own words, habits, and emotional patterns to move them. That's leverage.
Because at the end of the day, people talk. They always talk. The only question is, who's listening closely enough to turn that into strategy?
Now, let's be honest, this law makes a lot of people uncomfortable because it forces us to ask, when does strategic observation cross the line into manipulation?
That's the ethical tension here. There's a real difference between gathering insight to navigate power and weaponizing trust to exploit someone. And Greene walks that edge very deliberately in this law.
Right, the intent matters. If you're observing people in order to protect yourself, to understand the field, to prepare wisely, that's strategy. But if your goal is to gain someone's trust just to betray it, now you're not working as a spy. You're acting as a saboteur.
Exactly. And here's the long-term risk. Once you're caught crossing that line, your credibility dies. People might not confront you directly, but they'll start closing off. They'll stop sharing. They'll stop inviting you in. And in a world driven by access, that's a major loss.
Because what makes this law powerful is that people don't know you're using it. It works best when it's invisible, not because it's dishonest, but because it's subtle. If it becomes obvious, it stops working.
That's why the smartest players don't just listen to others, they also monitor themselves. They check their motives. They ask, am I learning to empower or to exploit?
And there's a big difference. You can be a quiet observer and still act with integrity. You can gather intel not to manipulate, but to avoid blind spots. Because in the game of power, what you don't see often hurts you more than what you do.
And when you act with that level of awareness, people sense it. They might not know what you're doing, but they feel safer around you because your silence doesn't feel predatory, it feels intentional.
It's the same in leadership. Great leaders don't need to dominate every room. They just need to read it accurately. And they gain that accuracy not by interrogating, but by inviting.
By creating environments where people talk freely, thinking no one's keeping score, while the leader is taking mental notes, connecting dots, noticing what others miss.
But again, always with purpose, always with a sense of responsibility, because the information you gather becomes power, and how you use that power says everything about who you really are.
So the challenge isn't just to pose as a friend and listen. The real mastery is listening without violating the trust you're given, to gather insight without crossing into deception.
So let's get practical now. How do you actually apply this law in real life without crossing ethical lines or damaging your relationships?
First, you shift your mindset. Instead of always thinking, what should I say? Start thinking, what can I learn? Every room, every conversation, every interaction becomes a chance to observe patterns, language, emotion, inconsistencies.
That means listening twice as much as you speak. Not just hearing words, but catching the pauses, the changes in tone, the things people don't say.
You also ask questions, not to interrogate, but to invite people into sharing more than they realize. What made you think that? How did that feel for you? Simple questions, but they open deep doors.
And when you ask them casually, with warmth, people rarely realize you're gathering insight. They feel heard, which ironically makes them talk more.
Now, in a corporate environment, this gives you a massive edge. Let's say you're in a leadership role. You pay attention not just to what's said in meetings, but who's silent, who deflects, who dominates. That's your map of power, insecurity, and tension, right there in front of you.
And in negotiations, this law is gold. The more you know about what the other party really values, not just what they say, the more you can shape your offer to hit pressure points without being aggressive.
Same in social life. If you're meeting someone new and you're doing all the talking, you're missing the point. But if you let them speak and you just stay curious, you'll know more in one conversation than most people figure out in months.
It's about becoming fluent in subtext, in the part of the conversation that's not obvious. And the more fluent you become, the less effort it takes to move people, because you're already working with what matters to them.
And the best part? You don't need to use that information right away. Sometimes just holding it gives you power. You know what people care about. You know what they fear. So when the time comes to make a decision, offer, or pivot, you're ready.
That readiness is rare. Most people scramble in real time, but you've been watching, listening, collecting. So when the room shifts, you're not surprised, you're prepared.
And again, it's subtle. You don't have to control everything. You just have to see it before others do. That's how you influence without force. That's how you lead without pushing. So here's what it comes down to. This law isn't about faking friendship. It's about elevating your awareness. It's about realizing that in every space you move through, people are revealing more than they realize, and most of it is missed by those who aren't paying attention.
And paying attention doesn't mean being paranoid, it means being present, reading the room, reading people, understanding what they say, why they say it, and what it implies beneath the surface.
Because power moves aren't always dramatic. Most of the time, they're made quietly, in how you position yourself, who you align with, what you notice before others do.
That's why working as a spy is such an elegant metaphor. You're not sneaking around in shadows, you're simply doing what others are too distracted, too loud, or too self-absorbed to do. You're watching carefully.
And when people feel comfortable around you, they relax, they open up, not because you tricked them, but because you created space for honesty. And in that space, they reveal things they don't even realize are useful to you.
That's the quiet power. It's not explosive, it's cumulative. Over time, you gather insight. Over time, you understand the real structure of the game. Not the surface moves, but the motives behind them.
And when you see those motives clearly, you don't need to push. You can influence with timing, with subtlety, with insight that looks like intuition, but is actually strategy.
So here's our challenge to you. For the next 24 hours, say less, watch more. In meetings, conversations, social spaces, shift from performing to perceiving. Don't just hear people, read them.
Because once you train your mind to see the emotional patterns beneath the words, you'll stop being surprised by people and start predicting them.
Next week, we move into a different kind of silence, one that builds mystery and depth. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. It's not about violence, it's about certainty. And when we break it down, you'll see why some power plays leave no room for mercy.
Until then, stay quiet, stay curious.
And remember, the person who listens better always sees further.